Guys, okay, I am really excited because today I am filming a fall recommendations and my current fall TBR. I have my little sweater on, it's overcast outside. I am not the biggest fan of the fall, but you know, the time has come, it's September, so I decided to make one of these videos. My allergies are pretty bad, so if my voice sounds a little different, that is why, but I'm just gonna start with this video. And then everything's on my laptop, so if I look down, that is what it is. I think fall is the perfect time for thrillers, so I am gonna start off this video with thrillers, some literary fiction, one sci-fi, and some romance. So stay tuned for that. So to start off with the thrillers, I read a lot of these on my Kindle, so I don't actually have the physical copy of them, but I'm just going to start off with some recommendations. So my first one is His and Hers by Alice Feeney. A lot of her books are very dark and kind of make you uncomfortable, so this one follows a murder that takes place in London. In my opinion, it's best to go into it blind, just so you don't really know what to expect. That is the best way to go about all of her books, just because there's a lot of twists and turns in it. It is dual POV and pretty short chapters, so I just flew through the book and really could not put it down to solve the mystery of the murder. So yeah, that is my first recommendation. Alright, my next recommendation is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. So I have the book right here, and I loved this book. It just follows a married couple, so Amy is the wife, and she actually goes missing on their 5th wedding anniversary, and it kind of follows that. Her husband, Nick, turns out to be the suspect, and there's a lot of like clues that come up pointing at Nick murdering her and just things like that. And if you guys have like heard of the book more in detail or seen the movie, you know kind of what the case is. It's just a really good thriller. It is also dual POV between Amy and Nick. Really good, and I highly recommend it. This recommendation is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I gave this book 5 stars, and it follows a wedding on an island, and a couple of instances take place where it goes south and there ends up being a murder. This book also has short chapters and is multiple POVs, so you have the POV from the bride, the groom, the bridesmaids, the wedding planner, a lot of things like that. It goes back in time and it follows all of these people as they go to fairy school and things like that. It follows their relationships and then ultimately what leads to the murder. So I really like that book. I know it is really popular, so if you haven't already, I definitely recommend picking it up. So my next recommendation is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I also gave this one 5 stars. It follows this woman who is an alcoholic on a house on the lake, and she starts spying on a couple houses over, and it's an unreliable narrator because she is drunk for a lot of the book, and it follows her POV, so you never really know whether to rely on her or if what she's saying is necessarily the truth or not. So that definitely makes for an interesting turn. There are some supernatural things that happen, and it gave me like a lot of chills reading it, just because there's a lot of things that happen that I wouldn't have expected. I don't think I could have read it at night, just because it is that dark. So yeah, if you're in the mood for that, I recommend picking up The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. And then moving on to some literary fiction novels. So the first one is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And I'm sure you've seen this book all over, but if you miraculously have not heard of it, it just follows these 2 friends who make a video game that ends up becoming super popular. It follows them as they start to become friends in their childhood, all the way up to college when they actually started making the video game, and then follows like 20 or 30 years in the future, and it follows like their friendships, their relationships, handling fame. It talks about disability, trauma, a lot of heavy themes like that. I think it is just beautifully written, The plot is unlike any book that I've read before, so I think that is something super unique. It is a pretty long book. It's like 400 pages. The cover is just beautiful, so it looks really good on a bookshelf. I read this. I loved it. Next book is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And this book follows Elizabeth, who is a scientist in the 1960s. She's not really taken seriously because she is a woman. So eventually, after a couple of instances, she ends up hosting a TV show called Supper at 6. While she's hosting the TV show, she's actually challenging women to escape the norms that they're placed in, especially in that time period. So it follows her as she battles gender stereotypes, her life as a scientist, and her relationships, and a lot of things like that. I think it's a good fall read. I really like literary fiction in the fall, and yeah, I don't know why, but it just gives me that nice fall vibe. And yeah, Lessons in Chemistry, I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, my sci-fi recommendation is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This book follows the main character Logan, who actually gets his DNA upgraded, and after he realizes it, he realizes that there are bigger powers at play who are on a mission to upgrade all of the humans on Earth, and it turns out to be up to him to make sure that this is not getting in the wrong hands and figuring out why people want to upgrade others, and it's up to him for not letting the development of it get in the wrong hands. So it follows him in that story. It's kind of like an action and sci-fi. It is, like I said, unlike anything I've ever read before. I do enjoy like a couple of sci-fi novels here and there. I might do a whole video about it if you guys are interested. For something different, I usually read a lot of like romance and fiction and historical fiction books, but I do enjoy an occasional sci-fi, and when I do, I definitely will check out Blake Crouch's book list. The next book is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So I think this is the perfect fall read because it takes place during the start of the school year. So Olive is a third-year PhD student in Stanford. She gets herself in like a little bit of a situation in which she accidentally kisses her like advisor, a really well-known scientist on campus. So she like panics, kisses him, and then they actually start fake dating. So this is a fake dating trope, which is super fun, and it kind of just follows them. Ali Hazelwood's writing is about women in STEM, so it kind of follows Olive's journey as trying to navigate that, being a woman in STEM, being a PhD student, academia, all of that stuff. And yeah, they're super cute together. I love a nice fake dating romance, so if you're in the mood for that, highly recommend checking out The Love Hypothesis. Okay, after that are some of my favorite books. So for the fall time, I highly recommend checking out The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. And I really like this book for a couple of reasons. One, her books are slow burn, and that is my favorite type of romance book, just because I like seeing the progression of the story. I like seeing the relationship build, because, you know, once they're in a relationship, it gets kind of boring. I'm like, okay, like I already got to the good part, like why would I keep reading? So I really like all of her book. Follows Vanessa, who is Aiden's assistant. Aiden is a professional football player, and she has been his assistant for a while, but they get into a situation in which they have a marriage of convenience. So it is that trope. It's like Grumpy Sunshine, marriage of convenience. Kind of One of Us is famous because Aiden's is a really well-known football player. So those are the tropes in the book. And is a really like funny guy to read about. He communicates a lot with actions and not with words. Vanessa is a super headstrong, like knows what she wants, very like driven woman, so that is something super nice to read about as well. The next book is Luna and the Lie, also by Mariana Zapata. I like this book because once again, it is slow burn. It's one of her longest books. I think it's almost like 600 pages, so you have to like really buckle down and read it. But whenever I read her books, I like have reread almost all of them. This follows Luna, who works as someone who actually paints cars. She works at like a car shop, mechanic shop, and it is a grumpy sunshine. He has liked her for years, kind of fallen first, and it follows their relationship as like working in the car shop. It also follows her relationship with her sisters. So that's another big theme in the book, is like super positive, super upbeat, tries to make the best out of any situation. And then finally, my last recommendation is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this follows a girl in high school who actually inherits a fortune. Like billionaire, has 4 grandsons, so it follows them trying to figure out like why she was the one who got the inheritance over them. One of the conditions is that she has to live in his house for a year, so it follows that over the course of a year, trying to figure out like why she got the inheritance, her journey on like actually getting the money after completing living in the house for a year. So it follows that, and there starts to be a little bit of a love triangle between her and 2 of the brothers. There are a lot of riddles and puzzles in the book, so it has that like kind of dark academia vibe because she's living in this like giant mansion, super rich, like things like that. So that is something super fun to read about. It is super short chapters, like 1 to 2 pages, so you're just like flying through it. Personally, I really like short chapters just because it motivates me to read more, versus if a chapter is like 30 pages, it's harder for me to get through. But yeah, so I really like that book. Okay, so that is my list of fall recommendations. I'm gonna quickly get into my TBR for the fall. So the first book is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Once again, this is another thriller by him. I don't really know what it's about, but I think it's about someone who's an apartment sitter, and there's just like a lot of like bad vibes, like tricky things happening in the apartment building, so I think it follows that. I'm not super sure, I'm just gonna fly through this, but yeah, that is my first book on my TBR. Next is Things We Left Behind. I'm currently reading that book. I think I'm about like 40 pages in, but it is a enemies to lovers, kind of like childhood best friends trope. It's really good. It is the 3rd in the Knockout series by Lucy Score, and it just follows Sloane and Lucien, as it's a small town romance, and it follows them. It's really good. I read the first 2 books before this book, so it follows 3 couples, and Sloane and Lucien are the last couple in the series. I haven't really gotten to like the big drama part yet. A lot of her books are slow burn as well. They're really big, like 500, 600 pages, but I'm currently reading that right now, and I really like it so far. After that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I've seen this book everywhere, like all over Book Talk. I know it was part of Reese Witherspoon's book club. Follows this mother who witnesses her son like murdering someone. Like, from what I got of the plot of the book is that it like goes back in time, and she like relives that day over and over and is trying to find a way to stop her son from like killing someone. But yeah, that is another book on my list. The next one is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is her first young adult romance, and it just follows a girl and one boy who are chess players in their story. And yeah, so I just want to read that. I'm curious to see what it'll be like because it is her first young adult romance, and it's about chess, and I don't really know anything about chess, so we'll see how it goes. And after that, I want to read The 7-Year Slip, actually Poston, and it follows this, like, the main character. A lot of bad things have happened to her, and she meets this boy, but apparently she lives like 7 years in the future from him. I don't really know. For a lot of the books, I kind of just go in blind, so that is what I got from it so far. I've seen a lot of people recommend this book, so I'm definitely interested in reading it, and a lot of people say it has this like cozy fall vibe to it, so yeah, I'm gonna check that out. And then my final book that I want to read this fall is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. I want to check out this book. I've had it on my shelf for like a couple of years, but I never got around to chance of reading it. But it is a young adult book, and it follows 18-year-old Donis Fontaine. Anyway, she witnesses a murder and has to try to figure it out. She's also mixed race in these like Native American tribes, so it follows like that with like identity and things like that. But it is a pretty big book. I have the hardcover. It's like almost 500 pages, so we'll see if I actually get to it or not. So those are all of the books that I want to read this fall, as well as my fall book recommendations. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you want more book videos or not. Yeah, I personally love to read, so I like giving out these recommendations, and also just letting you guys know what I want to read this fall. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!